Welcome into the betting preview for this week's Tour Championship. I'm Rick Gabin. That right there, Andy Lack. Andy, here we go. 30 golfers down to 29. Will Zalatoris, he gone. That changes a lot or nothing at the top.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that we're recording this a little bit on the later side, because I think if we did our regular time, we would spend some time talking about Zalatoris. But yeah, I mean, listen, it is what it is. Let me ask you this question. Do you think that he should be replaced and everyone should move up? So like Zalatoris, for example, is starting at 7. And do you think the guy who would be at 6 should go to 7? And then you get who I believe is Shane Lowry gets in?
I don't think Shane Lowry should get in, but I think they should move everyone up the starting strokes. I think he earned his spot in the top 30, but because we wipe the points before this event and everyone goes to starting strokes, you can't lock in a guy using the points, then get rid of them and not move everybody else up. So I think it should still be 29 golfers. Lowry doesn't get in, but everybody moves up a spot. So the guy who would have been, there would only be one guy who would jump up from even par to 1 under based on his FedEx Cup standing.
Right. And, not to get us too off track here, but, if Zalatoris is in this like position to win $20 million, right? $24 million in any other sport, if you get hurt the day before the Super Bowl, like you still have a contract, right? So like, is Zalatoris just coming up with 0? I mean, he had the potential to win life-changing money. I feel like that might be a fair inherent flaw with the PGA Tour system.
This is the first time we've seen it where normally, so if this was the old system, he would still keep his FedEx Cup points and he'd probably fall to like 6th or whatever, something like that. And he would, still make $3 million, but now he's going to get, I think it's $500K for 30th. So yeah, that's the one kind of financial downfall of the whole thing.
Yeah, that seems slightly unfair to me. I think that they should let Lowry get in and start it even. But listen, I mean, it is what it is. We could do a whole other podcast on the inherent flaws with the current system.
Here is the odds board, the grid, odds checker grid over for so we're going to do both with starting strokes and without. This is the with starting strokes version. Now, Scotty Scheffler plus 225 is the favorite. Patrick Cantlay plus 380, Xander Schauffele plus 650, Rory McIlroy's 10-1, so on and so forth. But now there is a 2-shot lead from Scotty to Patrick Cantlay and a 2-shot lead from Cantlay to, is it Xander? It's Xander at 600.
It's Xander at 600. Yeah. And so just talking a little strategy here, because I think a lot of people are kind of trying to figure out what market they want to bet this week. And I went a little bit more in depth on this in my course preview article. If you're betting the tournament with starting strokes, I really would not go much farther down than the guys at 3 or 4 under. I really wouldn't spend too much time on that. The reason why I say that, Eastlake is not a golf course that promotes a ton of variance, right? I described it in my preview as a course that it's kind of a death by 1,000 paper cuts, right? You're going to see a lot of pars and bogeys. You're going to see a lot of pars, you're going to see a lot of bogeys, and you're going to see some birdies. It's not a course where there's going to be a 63, and you're going to have to play pretty damn bad to shoot a 77, right? So, in my opinion, it's not like a Honda Classic or a TPC Southwind, right? Where there's water on 14, 15 holes and you could see guys ejecting left and right. It's hard. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a course, in my opinion, that promotes a ton of variance. So for me, if you're betting this market, I'm not going past the 3 or the guys at 3 at the very lowest or 4 under. How does that kind of sit with you?
I think it's very fair. I said on Monday, I think I narrowed down to like 6 guys who I thought could win it. And now I guess it's 5 because Zalatoris is out. So the two bets that I've made in the with starting strokes market are Patrick Cantlay plus 380. I think when he gets hot, he's kind of hard to stop, and he won last week and he's 2 shots back, and now he has a 2-shot cushion. So it's unlikely for him to fall super far unless he plays horribly, kind of as you noted. And then the guy that I'm willing to take as kind of the long shot is Finau. I got him at 22. He's now down to 20. He's going to start 6 back. If you talk about just having a stealing week, Finau has like 3 of the top 4 ceiling weeks of anybody in this field this year. It was Rory at RBC Canadian, and the next 3 weeks, the next 3 highest totals of strokes gained in a single event, the next 3 are all Tony Finau. So I'm willing to buy into the ceiling, which is what you're going to need to hit to go from 4 under to the winner.
Yeah, it's a tough market, right? Because if we're cutting these guys off at 3 or 4 under, you're asking a lot. I'm seeing Rory bet down to like plus 900, 10-1. You're asking a lot of Rory McIlroy to come back from, I believe Rory's at 4, right? You're asking him to come back from 6 strokes from some really formidable guys ahead of them, right? Like if Scottie Scheffler plays well, this is over on Thursday. If Scottie Scheffler goes out and shoots a 65 or a 66, which by the way, he was unbelievable last week at the BMW. It might be him holding the trophy if he could get the putter to cooperate a little bit more. So that's kind of the issue that I have with the starting strokes market. For me, I looked at Rory and Rahm kind of the most because it just felt like to me that those were the best candidates for positive regression on the season. The guys that have been playing the best golf that haven't gotten as much out of their play than the other players that I know I could see shooting 64, 65. But yeah, I mean, which market would you like overall recommend or prefer for this week?
I like the starting strokes market just because I think that there is, I think people overestimate, and you laid it out in your preview on RickRunGood.com. You just alluded to it now. Like people, I think, overestimate 2 things, like how far guys can come back from, and also how likely like Scottie Scheffler is to just win. I think both of those things are being overestimated, and there's a little bit of a sweet spot for the next handful of guys. So I kind of prefer that market, but here's the without strokes market. And this is much closer to what you'd see on a weekly basis, right? Rory's at the top at 7.5-1, Jon Rahm 9-1, which by the way, we were getting Jon Rahm at these odds in a lot bigger fields than now 29 golfers. So Rahm is 9-1, Cantlay and Xander are both 10-1, Scottie Scheffler's 11-1. The one thing that you have to be worried about here, Andy, and the one thing that worries me is that I hate it when my motives do not align with the golfer's motives. So Scottie Scheffler, who is looking at the leaderboard that includes the starting strokes and only cares about winning that, is not going to be incentivized to go out and win the shadow leaderboard.
Yeah, I think the problem with this market is that I mean, it's not inherently fun to watch or track, right? You're basically, the way that the TV coverage is set up, the way that the leaderboard on PGA Tour, I mean, it's not like asking a whole lot of being able to figure out how to track who's winning the shadow leaderboard, right? But you're not aligned on Sunday with the TV coverage, right? Like you're tracking something completely different, which is not, it's a little unconventional and not as fun. But I think there's some more opportunities in this market, right? Like I talked about how I wouldn't go super low in the with starting strokes market. I think it's completely plausible that somebody like Corey Connors shoots the lowest net score, right? I mean, Corey Connors is playing out of his mind right now. I think he gained another 8 ball striking last week, and he's 35-1. I think that was a bet that I made. He's in the 35-1. Maybe that went down, but right, you got these guys like Corey Connors, a KH Lee, a Sepp Straka farther down the board that are probably, they don't have a real chance of winning the FedEx Cup. But, sometimes I would be worried if Corey Connors was in contention to really win the FedEx Cup, right? Maybe this frees them up a little bit more, because it's not like the difference between 5th place and 15th place isn't a ton of money too.
Yeah, so for sure. And when you, remember Kevin Na tied Jon Rahm for the shadow leaderboard last year. So it's not inconceivable that one of these guys does it. My card will probably look like Matt Fitzpatrick, who I like to just shoot a couple under par every single day. I'd probably get like a 28 or a 30 on Colin Morikawa. And then, I'd probably, I don't know, like a Scott Stallings at 80-1. He's been playing great. Brian Harman can get lightning hot for 4 rounds at a time. I think there are some interesting bombs to be made here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, even Sahith, Hideki, who was not great last week, is in a much different category, in my opinion, as a player than I think a lot of the guys that he's priced around. I still have some concerns about him. He didn't look great last week, and there was obviously like a nagging injury concern. But yeah, I think that market is there are a lot more opportunities for quote unquote value, in my opinion. Like I know, for example, a lot of people were talking about how Sepp Strock at the beginning of the week was like 250 to 1 to win the shadow leaderboard. Like in a field of 30, that's just a clear misprice, right? And you could probably make the argument that even some of these guys at 80 to 1 in a golf tournament that employs this much variance over 4 days is just a clear misprice. And plus, you get a guy like Scotty Scheffler, for example, as you mentioned, Rick. If Scotty is 2 up heading in for the full FedEx Cup heading into Sunday, maybe he changes his game plan a little bit. That would maybe hurt him on the shadow leaderboard, but help him on the real leaderboard.
Yeah, so I just like it when my golfers' incentives align with mine, and that's not always going to be the case. Now, when we look at the matchup market, here's DraftKings, and you got to also be a little bit, for the most part, I think they put guys that are going to be starting together, like Corey Connors and Brian Harmon are both starting at 1 under. Tony Finau and Sung J M are both starting at 4 under. So that's generally what we're seeing, which I actually like that because it's rare that you see a matchup that's like minus 165. At least DraftKings doesn't usually dip into that. But like Rory McIlroy minus 240 over Matt Fitzpatrick, it's at least giving us some wider margin matchups, which they're not usually willing to do.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I found that interesting. Do you have interest in those? Like I always think with matchups in golf, you kind of want to embrace the variance, and I think life's a little bit too short to weigh like minus 250 in a matchup. But do you have any interest in taking on some of those like bigger dogs?
Yeah, like the ones that stood out to me. Like I don't know why I love Matt Fitzpatrick so much. I hate that he's up against Rory, but like Matt Fitzpatrick is kind of interesting. There was one like Scott Stallings against Cam Young, right? Plus 150. Stallings has been phenomenal. Young's been great too, but like I don't know, what if he loses 4 strokes with the putter again, like we just saw him do a couple of weeks ago? I think Stallings has been really complete. So I'll definitely lean towards the dog side of things.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it's on DraftKings, but I was looking at like I bet earlier in the week Morikawa, I think plus 150 over Xander. And I get Xander, the whole East Lake thing, and he's got a bit of an edge on with the starting strokes as well. But, Colin Morikawa's week looks a whole lot different if he doesn't have that one hole where he loses 4.7 strokes on approach, right? You still have him as plus 0.5 right there, right? So we're looking at one of those vintage Colin Morikawa iron weeks where he's probably gaining close to over 5 strokes on approach. And I bet him last week. I tracked him last week. Like he was hitting the ball great. His irons are back. I mean, he was talking about this, I think, in an interview. He found something on the range with his caddy, helped him with like one little quick fix, and now he's hitting that fade again. And, tracking it in the eye test back it up. So, I think Morikawa, I think it's kind of a shame that the season's ending when it is, right as it seems like he's starting to find things. But I think the stats are a bit misleading with Morikawa this week, and he's going to finish the season strong.
Yeah, the first 3 rounds he gained like 2 strokes on approach, 1.5 and 1. Like that's like now like there was like 6 or 7 straight rounds in which he gained at least a stroke on approach. Like he is 100% back, at least in that category. Okay, I want to talk about props, and then we'll quickly. I mean, I guess we could talk one and done, but I imagine it's over for most people at this point. So maybe we don't even need to talk about it. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word about Andy's podcast. Andy Lack is not only the co-host of The Scramble, but also produces his own show, the Inside Golf Podcast. It's available twice a week, focusing on course breakdowns, DFS, and betting strategies for every PGA Tour event. Admittedly, I was drawn to Andy for his data-driven approach, which you'll find on his Sunday shows as he breaks down the field. But I'm even more impressed by his passion for course architecture, which offers a different perspective of our great game. Mix those together with insightful and humorous guests who don't take themselves too seriously, and you've got a recipe for a great podcast. Follow Inside Golf Pod on Twitter and download Inside Golf wherever you download podcasts. And we're back. Andy, new look as well for the pod. You love to see it.
Yeah, shout out the folks over at Blue Wire. They gave me some great options, and yeah, I felt like it was time to upgrade. You know, I've had the same logos. I created the logo myself when I had, 600 followers on Twitter and no one listened anyway. So I felt like it was a worthy upgrade. And the feedback, you're never in a good place putting stuff out on Twitter, right? Whether it's new logo for your podcast, your golf swing, like you're never putting yourself in a good position, but the feedback I've seen has been overwhelmingly positive. So that's a good thing.
And welcome to the green and gold color scheme, which I feel like that's the elite golf color scheme.
Right. I like it a lot. It's, it feels unique because I can't, there's not really a ton of sports teams that are really embodying that, but it still has a little, golf with the green. So yeah, I love it.
Let's prop it up. So this is the prop board over at PrizePicks, which you can get $100 instant deposit match. Use the code Rick. There's a link in the description as well. So what we've got here on this Tuesday, birdies are better, strokes, birdie or better matchups, greens and regulation, fairways hit, and the illustrious hole 18 shots. Where do you want to start, Andy? I know, the fairways and their ability to be hit. We could talk about that. We could talk about strokes, which is kind of the de facto, star of the show when you get to round by round props, in my opinion. Where do you want to start here?
Well, I think for me, when I'm looking at PrizePicks, I try and always identify like what are the major outliers based on this course that PrizePicks probably isn't accounting for. And for me, when I think about Eastlake has some of the most narrow fairways on tour. Driving accuracy percentage at Eastlake is historically like in the 54-55% range. I mean, these fairways are some of the absolute hardest fairways to hit on tour. So as much as I love Colin Moore, and that's kind of frustrating too, because they really do have the two guys that are probably the two most accurate players in the field off the tee, and Morikawa and Connors is the highest. They don't always usually do that where they actually look at the stats and cater to it that way. But man, hitting 9 out of 5, or I guess there's only 14 fairways to hit. Hitting 10 out of 14 fairways at Eastlake is a pretty big ask, in my opinion.
You said it. That 55% clip of hitting fairways would hit you 7.7 fairways, which actually for this week is probably going to be pretty close, because sometimes we'll say, well, yeah, that's the whole field, but they're only giving us the top guys. Well, the Tour Championship is always the top 30 guys anyway, so it's pretty. I think it's better this week than most to look at this and say, wow, okay, that's asking Corey Connors and Colin Morikawa to hit 10. That is them gaining 2.3 fairways to the field, or even, Patrick Cantlay gaining a fairway and a half to the field. I still think the fairway numbers are too high for the most part.
What's Cam Smith at? Yeah. I take the under on Cam Smith. I just, of those guys, I think he is the least trustable off the tee. Even Jordan Spieth's driving the ball a little bit better than him right now. I would take Cam Smith under 8 would be probably my favorite. All those guys at the top are driving the ball incredibly well right now. Rahm, Xander, Cantlay's driving the ball great right now. Like, Cam Smith is probably the one that I have the most concerns about currently off the tee.
If I was going to take it over, it'd be Jon Rahm. Like, I know that, like, I obviously trust Connors and I trust Colin Morikawa, but the fact that Rahm is 8.5 and those other two are 9.5, like, if I'm taking it over on the fairway market, it's the guy who can just, I mean, he's the best driver on the planet, isn't he? And it's not pure distance. He's got every single shot in the bag with the long club.
Right. No, I completely agree. And I've talked about a lot on here how he's just had this unbelievable off the tee season that he's kind of wasted a little bit. But yeah, it was kind of the same story last week at BMW. Like he was absolutely elite at driving the ball. So I like Rahm a lot there too. You pulled up the starting strokes here now. That feels a touch low to me. Just based on how difficult I presume that East Lake is going to be. I mean, it has been somewhat dry, right? I mean, we saw it play it's played a little bit easier last year, but it's still like we're talking, I don't think East Lake is playing a stroke under par, right? Do you? I mean, I'm not seeing ever that it's playing like a stroke and a half under par.
Yeah, it definitely skews as more difficult on the PGA Tour with the vast majority of the props, the round one props over at PrizePicks at 67 and a half, get 68, 168, or a couple 68 and a halves there. But is there one or two that stand out to you with the current offerings?
I'm gonna keep picking on Cam Smith. I don't love him on a golf course where it's so essential to hit fairways. And I listen, you read any quote from any player. I think I included about 6 of them in my Monday article. It's like the one commonality is like you need to hit fairways on this course. And now Cam Smith is always able to gain 6 or 7 strokes putting and work around that, of course. But I just think that his path is so much more difficult here if he's not positive off the tee. And of the players that we're looking at here, Cam Smith is probably the most likely to not gain strokes off the tee of this giant group. So I would probably pick on the over with Cam Smith, plus the injury concerns and all the live smoke around him too. He would probably just be the easiest target in my opinion.
If I needed to take an under, I kind of like the hook on Corey Connors, 68 and a half, and have him go out there, shoot 2 under. We already think, and PrizePicks already thinks he's going to be playing out of the fairway constantly. For him to go out there, hit a couple of darts, take advantage of the fives, like he's great on the threes anyway. Like there's a decent path to him getting to 68 in his first round at East Lake. So I think I'd kind of live in that world. And then hole 18, we've talked about this before. We haven't seen the single hole prop in a couple of weeks. You can just wait until we start seeing guys roll through 18, and like all the starting times are independent of basically the guys that tee off later are going to lock on PrizePicks later. So we can see exactly how 18's playing and probably take advantage of that in a big way.
Yeah, and I think historic scoring average for this hole is probably right around 4.5. I would guess it's a closing par 5. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't that's not a market I would be looking to attack right off the bat. I think overall, like at a macro level, the scoring props are a little bit low to me, and I think you could take some unders on the fairways hit as well.
All right. The code you're looking for is Rick. There's a link in the description. Go get your 100% instant deposit match and make some money off those guys. Okay. I don't even know. And I mean, one and done's over, right? I mean, the vast majority of one and dones end, or at least they should end at the BMW Championship. If they don't, you should have some system in place where you don't get $18 million if you win this one, right? Like this is probably not a necessary conversation at this point.
Yeah, probably not. Did our guy win? I think he won. I think I haven't even checked. Yeah, but I think he won. I think he came in first. And I think I said to him on Slack, Neiman, who I think ended up being the best out of the choices. So hopefully there's no blood on my hands there. I sent him down the right path. But yeah, I believe that our guy won, and hopefully he could pass on some luck for us for next year, because I certainly did not have a profitable one and done season.
His username was Slapcut, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he won it. Yeah, congrats.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did go with Neiman, $420,000. And he won by like $3 million. He lapped the field.
Yeah, that is Brett Campbell, just to give him a name. So shout out Brett Campbell, RickRunGood member in the Slack channel. So that's good to see. Yeah, I mean, I think like strategy wise, is there anything looking ahead to next year you feel like you learned from this season and would do differently?
Not off the top of my head, but I have a lot of notes of things that I want to look into. I want to I kind of want to I want to like sit down for like 3 days and just like go through research and paths to victory and analyze kind of even like what Brett did and like maybe find some little nuggets, right? And see where we're at. But no, I don't have anything off the top of my head, but it'll take me a couple of days to dive into all that stuff.
Right. Well, we've got time. We've got no golf for 2 weeks. Are we doing? I know not next week, but the week after that, I'm in Ireland. But are we doing anything next week? Are you going on vacation too?
Yeah. So I'll be not next week, the week after. I'll be out on vacation. So maybe we will, maybe we won't. Maybe it'll be something like, I don't know, year in review, look ahead. Maybe we'll do one and done. I don't know. We'll figure something out. Also, there was a decent bit of people who want to play a season long one and done, which would start at the Fortinet.
I'm in. You had me at hello. Yeah. Where do I sign up?
I'm not gonna say no to that. So I'm gonna go do the payouts today for the last season. So I'll get those out today, and then I'll look into setting one up for the full season, which I think will be fun. I'm
in. Yeah. Sweet. I mean, do we want to because I've been talking about this in another home fantasy league. Do we want to? Is Black Monday coming on Monday, or do you think it's going to be after the President's Cup?
I don't want to jinx it. Black Monday seems like it's like kind of like grayish Monday now, right? It seems like
losing steam.
Steam. I don't want to obviously this stuff can change very, very quickly, but if you trust the reporting of No Laying Up and the Fire Pit Collective, which they've both done great jobs on this, it's seeming like we'll know before the season starts as opposed to after the President's Cup.
Right. Which I love to see, because you don't want to do what I did last year and draft Patrick Reed and Brooks Koepka, and then suddenly they're on left.
Yes. Yeah. Correct. Okay. Andy Lack, available on Twitter at ADP Lack Sports. You can find me at RickRunGood. This has been your betting preview for this week's Tour Championship. Good luck.